I never imagined my wedding would be a day of heartbreak, but my family chose a birthday over me. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. It was sunny, the kind of bright that makes every color pop. My dress was pure white, flowing, and everything I dreamed it would be. But as I stood there at the altar, a heavy silence filled the space. My heart pounded like a bass drum, each beat echoing louder than the last in the crowd. I searched for familiar faces. My mom's eyes were shining with tears, but they were not for me. They were fixated on the lavish cake across the room, covered in layers of frosting and sparkling candles. Today was also my sister's birthday. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach, a jarring twist of betrayal. My family had always celebrated her, but never like this. Not on my biggest day. As I stood there, time slowed. Guests murmured. I caught snippets of their conversations, filled with the unease that hung thick in the air. Did you see the decorations? Is that a three-tiered cake? My own wedding crumbled around me, overshadowed by a birthday. I could see the delight etched on everyone's faces, laughter spilling out as they reminisced about my sister's past parties. I should have felt joy, but I felt lost. I looked to my fiancé, who stood there, a smile frozen on his face. I wanted to scream, to shake everyone out of this absurd nightmare. The smell of flowers mixed with my tears, a pungent reminder of what should have been a fairy tale. My heart sank deeper. Every whispered comment cut sharper than a knife. Shouldn't they be focusing on her? I overheard someone remark, their voice laced with pity. It stung, but all I could do was nod along, choking on my disappointment. I tried to remember how I felt when the wedding was first planned, how love had filled every inch of my anticipation. Now that love evaporated, replaced by confusion and painful clarity. The cake was brought out. Everyone burst into cheers, a wave of clapping that washed over me like ice water. I felt invisible, a ghost on my wedding day, overshadowed by the sweet world of birthday bliss. The sound of my heartbeat matched the clinks and clatters of forks against plates, hollow and empty. As the candles were lit, I stood frozen, a spectator in my own life. My sister wished for something that should have been mine. Who would have thought my wedding would turn into her birthday bash? My hands trembled. I wanted to walk away, but my legs felt like lead. Would I ever find my spot in this family again? Would I be forever haunted by this moment? I took a shaky breath, feeling the weight of the unknown pressing down on my chest. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The applause echoed through the grand hall, punctuated by laughter and the joyful singing that accompanied my sister, a beacon of celebration amidst my despair. I stood there watching her glow, my own heart dimming in its shadow. The smile that had once seemed so infectious now felt like a punch to the gut, reminding me of the love that was supposed to envelop me but had quickly dissipated. I heard my fiancé murmur something, but the words were lost to me. I was too deep in my turmoil, drowning in the rising tide of my emotions. I forced a reassuring nod in his direction, hoping it would lessen the weight pressing on my chest. Yet I felt his warm hand slipping away, an unspoken distance stretching between us. The crowd swirled around me, laughter and joy colliding in an unbearable cacophony. Each sound was a reminder of what I was losing, a sense of belonging. A family that should have been rallying around me, celebrating the union of love and commitment. Instead, they were immersed in a different celebration, one that felt like a cruel joke at my expense. I turned my gaze away from the festivities, seeking refuge near a deserted corner of the room. My fingers clutched the fabric of my dress, the silky material now a stark contrast to the turmoil within. I stared at the wall, blinking back tears, trying to find a focal point, a lifeline to steady my spiraling thoughts. Then I heard Ida's quiet cough, barely cutting through the jovial noise. I looked up to find Aunt Clara, a figure I hadn't thought much about as I planned this day. Her eyes held a softness, a kindness that seemed to glow gently against the harsh realities surrounding me. She approached me slowly, and I noticed that her hands were shaking slightly as she reached out, a small cake box cradled in her grip. "Hey, sweetheart," she said, her voice a soothing balm. "I made this just for you." She opened the box to reveal a delicate chocolate cupcake, rich and decadent. "I thought you might need something special today. It's not a birthday cake, but it's for you." The tears I had forced down surged to the surface, blurring my vision. I opened my mouth, but all that escaped was a choked sound. Aunt Clara continued, "I know it's hard, my dear. But you deserve to be celebrated too. You are loved, even if it doesn't feel that way right now." I took the cupcake, feeling the warmth of her gesture nestle into the coldness of my heart. Her compassion anchored me for a brief moment, allowing me to breathe again amidst the chaos. "Thank you," I whispered, a shaky breath escaping my lips. "Come on, sit with me for a minute," she offered, gesturing towards an empty chair just outside the main area. As I followed her, a sense of relief mingled with the bittersweet reality of my situation. With Aunt Clara by my side, I started to feel a flicker of hope, something almost foreign in the midst of my turmoil. As we sat together, she shared stories from her own youth, moments of hardship and joy, punctuated by laughter that felt like a warm embrace. It was the kind of connection I had longed for, the intimacy I so desperately needed. It reminded me that not all love had to be a grand display. Sometimes it could be as simple as sharing a moment of understanding, a reminder that I wasn't alone. Yet even in this small space of comfort, the gravity of my wedding day sat heavy within me. My heart ached as I looked back towards the main hall, caught in a vicious cycle of envy and sorrow. My sister was the star tonight, and I was the solitary shadow. And just as I thought I could escape the ordeal, the sound of a raised voice broke through the air. My mom was calling for me, her tone urgent. "We need you back here now." Her words shattered the fragile peace Aunt Clara had imparted. I looked at Clara, whose eyes widened in concern. "Just go. I'll be right here when you're ready," she encouraged, her hand reassuringly gripping mine. I nodded, reluctantly rising from my chair as dread twisted in my stomach. As I approached the gatherings once more, I felt the atmosphere shift. My mother's expression was frantic, the jubilant laughter replaced by whispers. Something was wrong. I felt an ominous chill wrap around me, a sense of foreboding that twisted my insides. "What happened?" The words slipped out, breathless, as I entered the room. My mother turned to me, her face unreadable. "Your fiancé, he's gone." Gone. The word hung in the air like a suffocating fog. My heart raced as I felt the ground beneath me shift. Clarity was fading. Panic surged forward. I grasped at the edges of the reality surrounding me, desperately trying to comprehend the shocking revelation. Suddenly, the bright colors of the day dimmed, overshadowed by a new fear that threatened to shatter whatever remained of this long-desired celebration. In that moment, I realized my wedding day was spiraling into the chaos I never thought I could endure. What had begun as heartbreak now threatened to unearth my very foundation. A thick silence enveloped the room as my mother's words reverberated in my mind, a haunting echo that drowned out the chittering excitement from moments before. Gone. How could he be gone? A mad whirlwind of thoughts swirled around my head, intertwining with the harsh reality of the celebration that had so quickly soured. I caught sight of my sister, still at the center of the party, surrounded by adoring friends and relatives, her laughter ringing through the air like a blade cutting deeper into me. It felt as if the world had split in two, the surface of bright festivity above me, and the suffocating depths of despair below. I staggered back, my pulse quickening and panic clawing at my throat. "Where did he go?" I managed to ask, the words catching in my throat as urgency seeped into my veins. The jubilant backdrop of shimmering lights and vibrant colors felt like a direct mockery to the dark fog closing in on me. My mother took a step closer, hands trembling. "I don't know, honey. He walked out, said he needed some air. And then he just didn't come back." Her voice cracked on the last syllable, revealing an emotion I desperately needed to ignore: fear. With shaky hands, I clutched the cupcake Aunt Clara had given me, the sugary weight of it now feeling like lead. "I need to find him," I insisted, though the thought of wandering into that chaotic celebration alone filled me with dread. "Let me come with you. We can check the gardens," my mother said, her tone soothing despite the chaos around us. I nodded, desperate for a lifeline. But the thought of facing the prying eyes of family members who had already abandoned me felt like diving into icy water. I didn't want to be on display anymore as we stepped outside. The warmth of the summer evening brushed against my skin, yet the air felt thick with unspoken words and tension. The garden was beautiful in its own right, adorned with blooming roses and twinkling fairy lights, but to me it was now a graveyard of hope. Do you think he's upset with me?" I asked, the insecurity surfacing like an unwelcome guest. I could feel the weight of my own expectations bearing down on my shoulders, making it harder to breathe. I should have been celebrating too. Maybe I should have turned the attention towards us instead of just letting everyone focus on her birthday. My mother's gaze softened as she inhaled deeply, the weight of my insecurities clinging to the air between us. "Sweetheart, don't blame yourself. People are selfish sometimes. Your love for each other is real, and it deserves to be honored no matter what day it falls on." But in my heart, the gnawing doubt remained alive, festering with every ticking second we spent searching for him. As we wandered deeper into the garden, the cheerful laughter from inside faded, and I felt like a ghost wandering through a memory, haunting the joy of others. Then I saw Ida's figure leaning against the iron fence, only half visible in the dim light filtering through the trees. My heart surged with a mix of relief and anxiety as I caught a glimpse of the familiar silhouette. "Ryan!" I called, my voice a raw rasp as I pushed past the blossoming shrubbery. Desperate to cross the distance between us, he turned, his face etched with a mixture of frustration and sorrow. I approached, barely able to gauge his thoughts, swallowing hard against the wave of uncertainty that washed over me. "What happened? Why did you leave?" "Because I couldn't breathe in there," he replied sharply, his eyes darting away from me. "It's too much, everyone watching, judging, and I felt like I was just part of a show. I thought a moment outside would clear my head." "I understand," I whispered, my voice trembling. "But you left me alone. I didn't know where you went." I felt scared. It was like the whole world was falling apart around me. He ran a hand through his hair, a sign of vulnerability shimmering through the fragments of his frustration. "I thought you were okay. You seemed happy, at least on the surface." "But I'm not okay," I nearly shouted, heat rising in my chest, spilling into my voice. "I'm drowning. First my family ignores me and now this? I need you, Ryan. You're supposed to walk down the aisle with me tomorrow, but every time I reach for you, it's like I'm grasping at smoke." My words, his shoulders sagged. "I feel like I'm losing myself in this too. I've never wanted to hurt you, but I don't know how to handle all this pressure. Suffocating me." My heart twisted painfully, realizing we were both lost in a storm of expectations and chaos, trying to navigate our way through a crowded garden that felt like a prison. There was a silence, heavy and suffocating, thickening the air around us. I could see the doubt swimming in his eyes, the same doubts that haunted me more fiercely with every word we exchanged. Was our love strong enough to withstand the trials of a world that seemed intent on tearing us apart? Just then, the distant sound of laughter erupted anew from the hall, and I felt shame wash over me like ice. We stood amidst our emotional turmoil, invisible against the backdrop of celebration. Suddenly, a commotion from within caught my attention, a sharp scream, followed by a cacophony of voices erupting into chaos. My heart sank, and a twist of anxiety gripped me as I instinctively reached for Ryan's hand. "We need to go back. Something's wrong." He nodded, determination flickering in his gaze as we ran towards the source of the sound. My mind raced with endless possibilities. Was it another emergency, or had our already fractured world been pushed over the edge? As we reached the entrance, we were met with a scene of utter disbelief. My sister stood at the center of it all, pale and trembling. "It's Dad," she said breathlessly, her voice shaking. "He collapsed." In that instant, everything shattered, and a new wave of terror surged through me, drowning out all remnants of the joy that had once surrounded this day. The reality of love and chaos melded into one painful truth. I had wanted a celebration, but it seemed the universe had other, more devastating plans in store for us. The flicker of hope dangled like a thread over a yawning chasm, testing our resolve like never before. As I stood frozen in the doorway, the world around me spiraled with a frantic energy, each heartbeat syncing with the tumult of chaos that erupted within me. The once joyful celebration transformed into something darker, desperation settling in like an unwelcome guest. My sister's anguished words echoed in my mind. "He collapsed." I felt Ryan squeeze my hand, his grip anchoring me momentarily. But the sensation quickly faded as I turned my gaze towards the commotion in the center of the room. searching for him against the blur of faces painted with concern and fear. My father, once a pillar in my life, lay on the floor, surrounded by worried relatives, his body eerily still. I stumbled forward, feeling as if the ground tilted beneath me. My mother knelt beside him, her hands trembling against his chest, desperation clawing at her composure. "Please, someone call for help," she shouted, her voice cracking under the strain of panic. Ryan laid a gentle hand on my shoulder. "You're not alone," he murmured, but even his presence felt like a fading echo. The distance between us seemed to stretch, an unbridgeable chasm filled with fear and uncertainty. I felt swallowed by a grief I couldn't yet articulate, a wave crashing upon me that threatened to pull me under. And then it happened, me mother's anguished pleas morphing into a horrifying stillness, a suffocating silence falling over the room. In that fragile moment I could see her face crumple, her eyes flooding with tears as she pressed her ear to my father's chest. The rising panic of those around us threatening to engulf me whole. The walls of chaos resonated with whispered prayers and muttered fears, but all I could focus on was the lifelessness radiating from the man who had once been my unwavering support. My mind flitted back to memories of him lifting me onto his shoulders, reminding me I could reach any star, to laughter shared at the dinner table, to him teaching me to ride a bike. Everything felt like it was crumbling into an abyss of sadness. Ryan's presence faded into the background, and I staggered forward, desperation propelling me toward my mother. In a flurry of emotions I knelt beside her, my heart pounding in sync with the unfolding tragedy. "Dad!" I screamed, voice raw as it cracked into a sob. "Wake up!" But the world was pulling at the seams, darkness waving its cruel wand. As paramedics suddenly filled the space with urgency that bordered on intensity, I felt a different kind of panic wash over me, something gnawing deep within, the unshakable fear of loss, of the possibility that tomorrow's promises may become mere echoes of what could have been. Amidst the chaotic fervor, things began to blur. Brian's comforting whispers turned into distant murmurs, the frantic shouts of my relatives faded into an indistinct rustle. I was adrift in a tumult of my own emotions, a solitary island amid the storm crashing around me. "Stay back," a paramedic shouted, motioning for space as they rushed to my father, and my heart screamed at their urgency, a pang of helplessness threading its way into my chest. Before I could process what was happening, they began to perform chest compressions, the rhythmic thud against his frail body sending shockwaves through me as if with each push, a piece of my heart shattered. I wanted to beg them to stop, to tell them that this wasn't my father, the man who always knew how to comfort me and fix every scraped knee, the one who told me I was brave enough to face any storm. I clutched the soft fabric of my dress, the material void of comfort, and felt as if I were trapped in a nightmare I couldn't wake from. It seemed inappropriate to even breathe, to take in the scent of despair that hung thick in the air. Suddenly my sister turned toward me, her face ghostly pale. "What are we going to do?" The words came out barely above a whisper, laced with disbelief, but as they left her lips, I could hear the cracks forming in our previously sturdy family facade, as though our once solid foundation had crumbled beneath the weight of uncertainty. With every passing second, the world turned into a cold fog, where clarity was elusive, and hope flickered as dimly as the dying light of day outside. My heart slipped deeper into despair, reaching for Ryan's support only to find him staring at my father, his own expression veiled in the weight of our shared grief and helplessness. "We have to believe he will pull through," Ryan said suddenly, breaking his silence as he crouched beside me, his voice a quiet anchor amid the chaos. But as I focused on the frantic movements around us, the rattling beeping of machines, a knot twisted tighter in my stomach. A flash of doubt crossed my mind. Would tomorrow ever happen? Would our wedding simply be a figment of the joy we once anticipated, overshadowed by a reality we never considered? Then, just as abruptly as it had all begun, the scene paused. I glanced up to see a doctor approach my mother, his expression a grave mask that sent a chill down my spine. "Mrs. Stanton, we need to talk." Everything within me shattered as I heard those words, and time seemed to suspend, holding its breath as a new dread enveloped me like a shroud. I had never imagined my wedding day would be a day of heartbreak, but it felt as if tomorrow had dissolved into nothingness, lost beneath the tide of an impending tragedy. I gripped my sister's hand, and Ryan's fingers brushed mine, a delicate, silent promise that, perhaps in the midst of anguish, there remained a flicker of hope. But hope was like a feather caught in the wind, fragile and at the mercy of storms yet to come. As I searched Ryan's eyes for reassurance, A morbid truth settled within me. My dreams of love and celebration were crumbling into a nightmare, teasing the harrowing possibility of loss with each passing breath. The echoes of my father's absence resonated through our home, filling every crevice with an unbearable sorrow. Days turned into a haze of unrelenting grief. Even as I moved through life, I often felt like a ghost haunting my own existence. The wedding arrangements, once vibrant and overflowing with excitement, now lay abandoned like forgotten remnants of a joyful dream. Our vibrant colors faded, leaving only shades of gray. Each morning I awoke to an expanse of silence, the sound of my father's laughter replaced by a hollow quiet that felt suffocating. The parlor echoed not with music and camaraderie as it once had, but with memories warped by pain. Ryan had been a constant presence, his gentle support a lifeline amidst the swirling tempest of emotions, but the weight of our unspoken fears hung between us, a chasm marking what was lost and what we dared not confront. The day of my wedding loomed just a week away, yet instead of preparing to celebrate our love, I found myself submerged in the solemn rituals of mourning. My mother seemed lighter than air and heavier than stone all at once. She drifted through the days, staring blankly into nothingness, her fragility all-consuming. I wanted to reach out to her, but every moment felt fraught with the unnameable burden of sorrow, as though I might plunge us deeper into despair. One evening, I sat on the steps of our porch, watching as shadows grew longer with the setting sun. The air was thick with the scent of honeysuckle, sweet yet tainted by my aching heart. Ryan joined me, his presence a comfort against the encroaching darkness. Yet even our moments were steeped in a silence that spoke of fear and impending loss. Oh, you remember that summer day at the lake? Ryan's voice broke through the quiet, soft and tentative, but it lamented the memories we shared, those carefree days filled with laughter and reckless abandon. Yes, I replied, a small smile breaking through my somber disposition. Dad taught us how to catch fireflies. I let the memory flood over me, warm and tinged with nostalgia, a contrast to the chill encasing the present. They were magical. He made it seem like anything was possible, didn't he? Ryan's gaze drifted toward the horizon, lost in thought. I could still hear him laughing as he raced us to the water. The combination of his gentle smile and shared sorrow buoyed my spirit for a moment, offering a fleeting refuge from my heartache. But as fast as my smile had appeared, it quickly faded, stifled by an overwhelming tide of grief. Sometimes, I wonder how it's all going to change, I confessed, staring into the golden twilight without really seeing it. How can I walk down the aisle when a piece of me feels so hollow? Ryan turned his full attention to me, his eyes searching for understanding. We'll navigate this together. No one can take your father's place, but you can honor him by embracing this day. He would have wanted you to be happy, that I wanted to disbelieve him, to scream that happiness felt impossible in the weight of my sorrow, but there was an innate part of me that craved something. He had sighed in assurance that amidst the shadows, a flicker of light remained. You think I can? Absolutely, he responded, his voice firm yet tender, wrapping around me like a reassuring embrace. You carry him with you. This wedding is a celebration of love of all kinds, and your father's love will be present in every moment. Buoyed by that sliver of hope, I thought of how bright his smile had been, how it illuminated my darkest days and encouraged me to embrace my dreams. The memory flickered alive within me, igniting the dormant spark of anticipation somewhere deep. Perhaps I could find joy in our wedding day, a way to integrate the love of the past into my new beginning. But as shadows deepened, the reality loomed, overshadowing our fragile moments of hope. The phone rang late one night, shattering the stillness that had settled over our house. I answered with heart pounding, and the voice on the other end belonged to my aunt, a call I had been dreading. I'm so sorry, sweetie. We need to talk about your father's memorial service. The ground felt like it dropped from beneath me, the words slashing through me in a wave of disbelief and despair. No, I whispered, voice barely carrying out. We need to finalize arrangements. It's time to honor him, help everyone say goodbye, she pressed gently, her own grief palpable even through the phone. Tears streamed down my face as I involuntarily shook my head. No, I can't. Not yet. It's too soon. I can't say goodbye. Not when I'm supposed to say I do. Silence fell on the line, stretched painfully thin. I could hear her breathing, the weight of grief pressing heavily on both of us, manifesting as an incomprehensible weight. I hung up, cradling the phone as if it held the very essence of my father. When I looked up, Ryan's eyes were filled with concern and confusion, mirroring the turmoil within me. In that moment, enveloped in the ache of sorrow, I knew the wedding day, the one that had been meant for joy and celebration, was teetering on the precipice of a deeper heartache I could scarcely fathom. The impending reality of our wedding felt hollow, a mocking reminder of everything I had lost. I turned to Ryan, searching for refuge in the reassuring touch of his hands, but found only uncertainty clouding his gaze. I feel so torn, I confessed, voice trembling. How can I celebrate when I'm haunted by this loss? In his eyes, I saw the introduction of another dilemma, one that had been hidden beneath the surface, not fully understood. We'll figure this out together, he replied evenly, though uncertainty lingered still. But as my thoughts spiraled, one idea gripped me, hovering like a moth around a flickering flame. What if we moved the wedding just a little bit? The words tumbled from my lips, imbued with desperation. What if we put it on hold? Ryan's eyes faltered, disbelief spreading across his features, but before he could respond, the doorbell rang sharply, interrupting our moment. I froze, the knot in my stomach tightening even more, unsure if I wanted to face the world waiting just outside. Ryan hesitated, glancing toward the door as if choosing between the present and whatever awaited us beyond the threshold. I knew this moment could change us forever. But as we met the eyes of whatever awaited us, I realized my fears might not only lie in the depths of my father's absence, there was something else lingering. Something that felt like a storm gathering just beyond the horizon. The door swung open, and there she stood, me mother, her eyes shimmering with a fierce resilience I hadn't recognized in her for days. Clutching a box of letters in her hand, she stepped inside. I found these, she said, a warmth in her voice that was powerful yet delicate. I think it's time we read them. And it was then, as I stood before her, my heart pounding with the weight of her bravery, my world turned as uncertain as a flickering candle in a gale. Beneath the threshold of our grief lay uncharted waters, and just as quickly as I clung to the hope that tomorrow would emerge, my mind drifted towards what secrets those letters might hold, secrets perhaps entwined with the love my father had shared and the legacy we carried forward. But without realizing it, we had opened a door not just to memories shared, but to unanswered questions that could unravel everything we thought we knew. As I felt the fragile lines of our lives intertwining anew with this unexpected moment, the future felt closer than ever and yet devastatingly uncertain. The letters gleamed under the soft light of the living room lamp as we settled onto the couch, my heart thrumming like a restless bird in my chest. My mother's hands trembled slightly as she placed the box between us, the content of which felt like a sacred treasure. It was impossible to ignore the raw emotion etched on her face, the gentle resolve beneath her fragile exterior. I knew there was so much unsaid between us, so many layers of grief that had yet to reveal themselves. That I haven't looked at these in years, she admitted, her voice softer than the fabric covering the couch we sat on. Your father used to write letters to himself. To us they were a way to document his thoughts and feelings. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears, and I felt the weight of the past settle over us like a quilt, warm yet heavy. And that moment, I realized we were standing at the edge of a bridge built from shared memories and unspoken fears. My mother, with her heartbreak shrouded beneath layers of resilience, was reaching out to create a connection between our present sorrow and the love that had once been so vivid and alive. With trembling fingers she opened the box, revealing neatly folded pages yellowed with time. I brushed my fingertips over the first letter, embossed with my father's familiar handwriting. It wasn't simply a window into his past. It was an invitation to step back into his world, to breathe in everything he cherished. I dared to hope that within those letters lay pieces of his heart, fragments of wisdom that could help illuminate the path forward in this dense fog of grief. Let's read one, I suggested after a heavy silence, my voice barely above a whisper as she pulled out the first letter. Our breaths entwined in the stillness, a ritual brimming with anticipation and trepidation. She began to read aloud, the warmth of her voice mingling with the ghosts of our memories. Dear Emily, if you're reading this, I hope you remember the time we spent at the beach collecting shells and chasing waves. Her voice tremored slightly, but she pushed through, and with every word, the air thickened with nostalgia. You were so brave, my little girl, never afraid to dive into the water, never afraid to chase a dream. My heart squeezed painfully in response, the depth of loss more pronounced with each passing sentence. The letters painted vivid images of family vacations, late-night talks, and moments of unyielding joy. They weren't just remnants of my father's life. They were the threads that held the tapestry of our family's love together. A family now shadowed by grief, yet if I dared to peel back the layers, I could find glimpses of who we once were. That summer you taught me how to ride a bike without training wheels, my mother read on, a smile breaking through her tears, tugging at the corners of my mouth too. You fell over and over, but each time you got back up, dusted yourself off and tried again. Don't ever stop doing that. Sweetheart, life's worth the bruises. As the words flowed, I could feel my mother's resolve gently unspooling, the burdens of sorrow lifting just enough to make room for tenderness. Perhaps this wasn't just my journey. We were on this path together, stumbling through the wreckage of our shared loss but still tethered by love. When she finished reading the first letter, we remained in silence, the emotional weight of it burrowing deep within me. I could see that something had shifted in my mother, her grief, momentarily distraction by the echoes of my father's spirit. The uncertainty of our future still loomed, yet in this moment we dared to feel joy, if only for a flicker. Do you want to keep going? She asked, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. Yes, I whispered, feeling a warmth spread through me at the thought of this newfound connection. Let's read another. One letter led to another, and with each one, the walls we had encased ourselves in began to dissolve. More stories emerged, tales of love, regret, laughter, and the imperfections that unify us. I learned of sacrifices made, of dreams deferred but never fully abandoned, and most importantly, I could feel the essence of my father's love filtering through the ink on those pages. They were his voice guiding us. But just when it seemed we were carving out a corner of solace amongst the shadows, reality crashed in at the edges. The date of my wedding loomed ever closer, a weight that felt increasingly unbearable. The letters brought the comfort of remembrance, yet each one was a reminder of what we had lost so desperately. I found my mind wandering as another letter crinkled beneath my fingers. Mom, I murmured hesitantly, what if we shared these letters at the wedding? I could read one to honor Dad. Her face fell momentarily, caught between the joy of honoring his memory and the weight of the imminent pain it would bring. Is that truly what you want? Can you handle sharing this vulnerability in front of everyone? But the more I considered it, the more it resonated deep within me. I want him remembered through laughter, through tears, I replied, resolving my own doubts. A fleeting smile erupted on her lips. He would want to be celebrated, wouldn't he? We clung to that newfound hope as we shared one last letter, my father's voice resonating through our hearts. But just as I felt the warmth of that connection cementing our fragile reality together, I heard an unexpected knock at the door, echoing like a harbinger of unresolved emotions, a stark interruption to our tender moment. My breathing hitched as I exchanged a glance with my mother, an unspoken tension threading through us. This was not merely a knock. This was a signal that the world had not stopped, even as we grieved. I rose slowly, my heart battling between fear and anticipation. Who could it be at this hour? The air around me charged with uncertainty, an unsettling mix of the bittersweet moments from the letters and the harsh reality of what lay beyond our haven of memories. Opening the door, my breath caught in my throat. Standing there was an unexpected face, one I hadn't seen in years. My estranged sister, a figure from my past who had wrestled from my life like some unwieldy ghost, now stood framed in the dim light of the porch, her eyes wide, filled with a mixture of regret and longing. Emily, she said, the tremor in her voice echoing the vulnerability of the moment. I need to talk. And as her words hung in the air, I felt the edges of my carefully constructed world fading, uncertainty stirring like a tempest, with the prospect of unearthing buried truths. In that instant I understood. This was not merely an evening of remembrance, but a reckoning with loss that had the power to reshape everything I thought I knew. The air felt thick as I locked eyes with my sister, Clara, standing just beyond the threshold. Each second stretched unbearably, the weight of history coiling around us like an unwelcome embrace. I had rehearsed 100 different moments in my mind, fantasies where she sought forgiveness, or maybe just connection, yet nothing could have prepared me for the Isher eyes glimmering with the kind of sorrow that echoed my own. Clara, I finally managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper, as if speaking too loudly might shatter the tiny sliver of hope I clung to. I know this is unexpected. She held up her hands defensively, the tremor within them revealing her nerves. Please, can we just talk? Before I could respond, my mother stepped forward, a look of surprise washing over her face. Clara, after everything, how did you know we were here? I saw Mom's car, she replied, her voice breaking softly. I've been trying to reach you, to reach both of you. My mother's expression flickered. Emotions tangled in her gaze. The sight of my sister, once a source of warmth and now a reminder of everything that had fractured us, left a bitter taste in my mouth. Yet the longing to understand what lay beneath the surface held me captive. We were just going through Dad's letters, I began hesitantly. It's been a difficult time for us. Clara flinched at the mention of our father, the sudden turmoil in her eyes telling me her own unresolved grief was battling for air. I heard. That's why I came. I was hoping maybe we could. She trailed off, despair drifting in her voice. An awkward silence settled over the three of us, laden with unspoken words and the ghosts of past hurts. The encouragement from the letters I'd just read seemed to dissolve into the air, leaving only unease behind. Instead of the bridge I wished to build, I felt my heart inching back into darkness. Maybe this isn't the right time, my mother finally said, her voice soft but firm, as though attempting to shield both of us from the rawness of the moment. Yet they didn't retreat. Clara stepped tentatively inside, the barrier that had widened between us for years pulling together with each deliberate step. I need to be here, she said, her voice thick with emotion. I know it sounds selfish, but I need to be a part of this. Of youth remembering Dad. The want to pull away, to protect myself from the heartbreak swirling in the room begged to dominate my instincts. So much had been done, so many years of silence straining against the walls closing in around us. You left, I heard myself say, bitterness creeping into the words. You chose to walk away. Now you want to come back when it's convenient. Emily, please, she pleaded, her face crumpling under the weight of my rejection. I had my reasons. I'm not asking to erase the past. I just want. Her voice trailed off as she looked at my mother, deepening the connection that had once seemed impossible. What did I want? The question rushed through my mind, bringing with it flares of anger, bitterness, and a flicker of longing. To be a family again? To find solace? Or perhaps to simply fill the void left by loss, the life we could have had and still could, if only we could step past the hurt. You broke us apart, Clara. You don't just get to waltz back in when it suits you, I said, my voice shaking, tears threatening to spill over. What do you think has changed? You still don't understand how many pieces you left behind. In that moment, something shifted within her. The defiance and vulnerability melded into a singular recognition of what we had all lost. I know, and I regret it every day. I came here in the hope that maybe I could help. I didn't want to be the reason you suffered. Mom stepped closer to Clara, her hand hovering over her shoulder, as if seeking to bridge the gap between them, a touch of compassion amid a surge of unresolved emotions. You don't know the half of it, she whispered in a voice barely louder than a prayer. My heart fluttered. Would we be able to do this? Were we brave enough to build new memories atop the wreckage of our past, allowing the light of our Father's love to guide us through the storm? Look, I said, letting my breath hitch as the walls of my heart threatened to crumble under the weight of vulnerability. If we're going to do this, I can't promise it will be easy. Clara nodded, the tension morphing into resolve. I don't need easy, I just need a chance. Just like you. Just then, a cry rang out from the other room, a mournful wail that sliced through the tension, reminding us of the primary source of our sorrow. My mother's eyes widened. It's the baby, she gasped, rushing toward the sound as if the crisis heightened the urgency in our hearts. Wait, I called out, suddenly aware of how quickly our intimacy felt compromised, how fragile our attempt to reconnect might shatter under the weight of another reality. Clara remained frozen, uncertainty clouding her features, but in the flurry of chaos, something deep inside me twisted painfully at the thought of letting her walk out again, of turning my back on the possibility of lovely, flawed family remnants. The moment Clara stepped forward, crossing that crucial threshold into vulnerability, the door we had fought against for so long seemed to creak open just a little wider. As I turned to follow my mother, capturing the essence of hope amidst my heart's turmoil, one last exchange took place between Clara and me, a silent acknowledgement that our stories were intertwined like the pages of my father's letters, waiting to be rewritten. But amidst the swirl of vows and trained smiles looming just a breath away, faint shadows began to move through my heart, secrets I had yet to uncover, truths I had yet to face. What if the letters held more than just memories? What if they contained truths about our father's past that could shatter everything we believed? As the night unfolded, I couldn't shake the realization that not all stories end in healing, some take root in heartbreak, igniting wildfires of passion for reconciliation. I felt the dread settle in like a creeping fog, a dark question spiraling. Was I truly prepared for whatever was waiting just beyond that door? The air in the house had shifted, growing heavier with the presence of unspoken challenges lurking just out of sight. I stood in the dim light of the hallway, caught between my desire to reconcile and the suffocating weight of unresolved emotions. My mother's hurried steps took her into the other room, her priorities momentarily refocused on the needs of the baby, while Clara remained just a few feet away, her body language betraying a cocktail of hope and uncertainty. "I didn't mean to interrupt," she said quietly, her gaze darting toward the door through which my mother had vanished. I thought it might be okay if I came back to help with everything." I could see that she was trying to gather her strength, but the cracks in her facade were already beginning to show. "This isn't about just helping. It's about trust," I said, surprising myself with the firmness in my voice. "How can I trust that you won't leave again when things get hard?" "I know," she sighed, her voice barely above a whisper. "And I get that you're angry. You have every right to be." She took a tentative step closer, her hands trembling slightly at her sides. "It's just that I never had a chance to explain my reasons." "Reasons? Is that what you call abandoning your family?" My voice cracked under the pressure of the memories. The slamming doors, the echoes of arguments, and the empty chair at the dinner table all played through my mind like a repetitive torment. "Please, Emily." A glimmer of desperation colored her words. "Before I left, everything felt suffocating. I thought stepping away would give me the clarity I needed. I didn't realize it would create this chasm between us, not until it was too late. Clara, everyone suffers. We all have our burdens. You made your choice. And then you vanished without a trace. Do you know how that felt? To have one parent lost in the grave, and another suddenly gone?" My soul cried out, the pain spilling over as bitterness and hurt cascaded through each syllable. "I get it," she pressed, her voice shaking. "But I never stopped thinking about you, about Mom. This isn't easy for me either." The sincerity in her eyes stung, challenging the carefully crafted walls I had wrapped around my heart. We both turned at a soft sound emanating from the baby's room. "Aku," a mule, the sweet, innocent noise of new life. It snapped us back to the present, the two of us anchored in the reality we both ached to face. "Maybe we don't have to navigate this alone," Clara suggested tentatively. "Mom's the one who needs us. We need to be a unit right now." "That's what Dad would have wanted," I replied, the words spilling out before I could catch them. The thought of our father, the way he effortlessly knitted us into a family with kindness, stories, and love made my chest ache. Clara took a deep breath, her shoulders falling slightly. "I remember him reading to you by the fire. How he would tell us stories until we fell asleep." Her voice softened. "I want to reclaim those memories with you. I want to remember him together." In that moment, I realized how fractured our shared history had become, and how desperate I was for the comfort of connection even if it terrified me. Just then my phone buzzed violently against the wall, reverberating through the stillness of the house. I fumbled for it, glancing at the screen. A text from my best friend Leah flashed across. "Eat a reminder. An invitation for tomorrow." Her words, meant to be lighthearted, felt heavy with implications. "Can't wait to celebrate your big day." Panic surged within me, washing away the warmth of our moment. Tomorrow was my wedding day. A day I had imagined for so long, yet one that now sat like a weight on my chest. "I can't believe I still have to go through with this," I mumbled, trying to keep the tremor out of my voice. "The wedding?" Clara asked, genuine concern etching her features. "It's complicated." I shifted, rubbing my temples in frustration. "Everyone thinks it should be a joyous occasion, but I feel like I'm torn. I can't shake the sense of loss, especially now that everything's resurfacing." "I can be there for you," she said, her voice soothing and tentative. "I can help. We can figure this out together. You don't have to face it alone." I glanced at her face, the earnestness etched into her features, and for a moment, I felt the heart of my father beating in the silence between Ushi's legacy, timeless, like a haunting melody played just for us. As the minutes ticked by, the air thickened once more with unvoiced challenges and the promise of change. What if tomorrow did not just mark my wedding but forced me to confront all the unacknowledged grief we had buried? Reflecting on Clara's words about remembering our father, I felt the icy grip on my heart released ever so slightly. But just as quickly, I felt the warmth of hope fraying against the looming shadow of the future. I don't know if I'm ready for this, I said, holding her gaze. Not with everything swirling around us. A moment of understanding passed between us, framed against the backdrop of our shared past, and the impending weight of the wedding. But something deeper pressed at the edges of my mind, whispering secrets I wasn't yet prepared to face. In that instant my phone buzzed again. I checked it, expecting another message, but what flashed across the screen sent my heartbeat racing. An unknown number. You need to prepare yourself. Not all secrets stay buried. The world spun around me as I locked eyes with Clara, a mix of confrontation and revelation dawning between us. What could that possibly mean? Just when I thought the infinite layers of our story might begin to untangle, an unforeseen twist loomed on the horizon, dark and uncertain, waiting for me to confront it head-on. The air felt electric, almost crackling with the sudden intensity that enveloped the room. I moved back from the hallway, my heart pounding and my mind racing to process the implications of the text. Clara, I whispered, as if saying her name could offer some reassurance against the dark waves crashing in. What is it? She asked cautiously, her eyes wide, taking a reluctant step towards me. This text. It's from an unknown number, I stammered, showing her the screen like it held all the answers to my spiraling confusion. What does it mean when someone says you need to prepare yourself? What secrets? Clara's brow furrowed as she took the phone from my hands. She read it aloud, her voice trembling slightly. You need to prepare yourself. Not all secrets stay buried. She looked up, her expression unreadable. Could it be someone from our past? Or someone who knows about Mom and me? I interjected, panic creeping in. The shadows of our broken family history loomed larger as the idea settled in. What if this is about Dad? What if? No. Clara shook her head, a frown knitting her brows together in uncertainty. Let's not jump to conclusions. But we have to find out who sent it. Before I could respond, the shrill sound of my phone vibrating against the wall interrupted us once again. A new message had come through, this time a photo attached. Clara and I exchanged apprehensive glances as I clicked it open, dread pooling at the pit of my stomach. The image loaded slowly, revealing a blurred picture of a figure standing before a familiar house. My heart sank. It was our childhood home, the very place where so many memories were made and shattered. What the? Who is that? I whispered, the voice barely escaping my lips. Clara leaned closer, squinting at the mess of shadows captured in the photograph. I don't know, but it looks like someone's been watching us. Great, I muttered, sarcasm trying to mask the fear threading through my veins. The wedding day that should have been a milestone felt like a countdown to something much darker, lurking just out of view. Maybe this is why I'm feeling so uneasy about everything, I finally admitted, a tremor in my words as I tore my eyes away from the screen. It's not just about saying I do. It's about all this unfinished business. For a moment, silence reigned once again, heavy with the draw of unresolved grief and the shadows of prior decisions creeping back into my mind. In that silence, though, I glimpsed another feeling, sisterly support. Tomorrow I'll be there, Clara whispered. No matter what happens or who shows up, we'll handle it together. I promise. Tears pricked at the corners of my eyes, and I felt stronger with Clara next to me, reminding me of the strength our father had once instilled in us. You shouldn't have to support me, I argued, shaking my head as the weight of my expectations settled in. You're just back. This should be your time to reconnect with Mom, not to play the role of comforter. Being here for you is exactly where I want to be, she replied, her sincerity brightening the corners of my heart even as my anxiety tightened its grip. Besides, whether I was here or not, the truth will find its way into the light. We can't hide from it. As the darkness within me wrestled with Clara's kindness, I took a deep breath, the weight of what was left unsaid pressing against my chest. Instead of feeling alone, something began to shift in me, almost imperceptibly, a flicker of bravery igniting the fear. Clara was right. There was no escaping the truth, and maybe, just maybe, facing it could lead to the healing I hadn't dared to hope for. With our shoulders squared and a shared resolve fortifying us, we stepped into the next room, where the baby softly cooed, unaware of the drama unfolding beyond the walls. I leaned my head against the doorframe, watching Clara approach my mother, now lost in her new role as caretaker. But just then, a sound broke the tender moment: a knock on the front door. We exchanged unsure glances, suspicion swirling around us like a winter storm. Who would be visiting at such an hour? My heart raced. Again, each thud resonating with the potential for confrontation. Should I answer it? I asked, my voice trembling as I moved toward the door. Clara nodded slowly, uncertainty etched across her face. Together? We stood side by side as I pulled the door open, though dread lingered in my heart, the atmosphere thick with the potential for confrontation. Would it be a dark reminder of our past, or an unexpected visitor with answers? As the door creaked open, the night air rushed in, carrying an unfamiliar scent that mingled with the prickle of fear. The figure before us was shadowed against the porch light, its features hidden, but my heart dropped as recognition struck like a lightning bolt. Just as I silently grappled with my shock and confusion, the figure stepped closer, revealing the face that had been lost in memory. A voice, soft yet sharp as glass, broke the silence. I've come for the truth and to turn the tide against our family's fate. As I stood framed in the doorway, unsteady and disbelieving, the figure before me took a step forward, and I felt the world around me twist on its axis. This wasn't just a return. It felt like an omen, a herald of rippling consequences. My breath caught in my throat, a mixture of anger and bewilderment flooding my veins. It was Sarah, my estranged cousin, having arrived at a moment that couldn't feel more loaded. What do you want? I managed to choke out, the weight of history pressing down upon me like a suffocating blanket. She opened her mouth to respond, but words faltered as fury boiled just beneath the surface. I'm here to help you, she said finally. Both of you. Clara shifted beside me, her hand brushing against mine. A silent plea for unity and silence amid the brewing storm. But I couldn't fathom needing any help from someone who had been so quick to disappear when things got difficult. You think you can just show up after all this time and act like everything is fine? The words exploded out of me before I could think better of it. Emily, please, Sarah began, but I cut her off. The perspectives wrapped in fear shifted rapidly between the two of us as I continually re-entered this dance of hurt anew. Fine. I blurted out, desperation sneaking in. If you're here to help, you need to tell us everything. Why now? Who else knows what happened? And why should we trust you? She glanced behind her, checking to see if anyone else lurked in the shadows, and then pulled out a small, worn envelope from her jacket pocket. Because this may change everything, she declared, voice resolute. This isn't just about all the family secrets we've buried. It's about your father's legacy, about the truth that could set us all free. Caught between disbelief and curiosity, I glanced at Clara. Her expression mirrored my own unease, a cocktail of apprehension and hesitation. What are you talking about? Clara questioned, her voice rising slightly. Just tell us what you know. Taking a deep breath, Sarah stepped closer, lowering her voice. When I heard about your father, I knew I couldn't stay away. There are things he didn't want anyone to know. Secrets he took to the grave that could tear our family apart or bring us together. It depends on how we choose to see it. Clara and I exchanged bewildered glances that blurred the line between anger and intrigue. Part of me wanted to slam the door in her face, to cut the ties that threatened to tie me back into an intricate web of family drama, but as my heart raced, I found myself unable to do so. Somewhere within me, an ember of curiosity ignited an urge to understand what truths were poised to leap into the light. What do you mean? What could possibly be worse than what we've already lost? I asked, the edge of despair creeping into my tone as I embedded my sadness and yearning into the plea. Her eyes sparkled with a hint of recognition, and she unfolded the envelope, revealing yellowed pages that had clearly seen better days. Your father wrote this to me years ago before he passed. He asked me to keep it safe, and I struggled with whether or not to honor his request. But it seems the time has come to finally face the truth. Warily, I extended my hand towards the papers, the frayed edges whispering of a world untouched, secrets begging to be unveiled. Clara and I edged closer, drawn together as the specter of our family history beckoned us to unearth the buried past. Whatever you think you're about to read, it's not a judgment, Sarah cautioned. It's about us overcoming our wounds, our shared legacy. You can choose to embrace it or let it tear you apart. But you both deserve to know the truth even if it hurts. I glanced at Clara, searching for assurance, and found a determined nod reflecting back at me. We could confront this darkness together. Exactly as we had started to piece the fragments of our history with each other. As I grasped the pages in my hands, Sarah's expression softened, resonating with the weight of shared sacrifice. Just know that this journey won't be easy, and it might lay bare wounds you thought had healed. But it might also unlock a sense of closure. With my heart racing, I uttered a shaky breath, anxiety swirling as I stepped through the threshold of connection. I had summoned the courage to embrace the darkness with Clara at my side while hoping the light of understanding would guide us through. With every stroke of ink that unfurled a long-buried truth, so too would the layers of my heart expose the pain, the regrets, and the hope for harmony. In that moment, surrounded by the painful beauty of family, its flaws, its dreams, and its unbreakable bonds, I knew we would face the storms together. "Hand me that letter," Clara said with unexpected strength, as she extended her palm toward me while our eyes locked, a silent vow coursing through us. As I handed her the letter, I felt the tremors of fear and anticipation intertwine, knowing that we were now on the brink of reconciliation, a step into the unknown with the soul of our father threading through every word. Together we turned the page, and in that moment, their stories began to intertwine. A weaving of experiences that spoke louder than Lausanne's invitation to embrace the brightness that lives alongside shadows. The journey would not be without pain, but every step we took together towards the truth reinforced our belief that the love we carried could outshine even the most daunting of memories. There, amidst the chaos of family reunion and discovery, I dared to hope. Not just for tomorrow's wedding but for all of our tomorrows. And as Clara held the letter, reading the first line aloud, it threaded through the very core of my heart, igniting a gentle promise. "Dear Emily, if you're reading this, you know that love, no matter how labyrinthine, always leads us home."